What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spark to Fire. I've got my good friend Frank Benedetto here today. I heard him speak at a traffic and funnels conference in Nashville, and he absolutely crushed it his first time on stage. And I know he's got a lot more going on other than just speaking at events. He's got several other businesses and projects going on, but I want to let him speak to those personally. So thank you, Frank, for coming on the show, brother.
Yo, what's up, man? Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. Well, so in Spark to Fire, Spark to Fire fashion is basically we start off with a little bit of your origin story. So I'd love to give the audience a little bit of kind of a background about who you are, what got you to where you are today first in about 5 or so minutes, and then we'll move into what you're doing today. And then for anybody who's a business owner listening to this, which is 90% of our audience, today we're going to talk about being a mission-driven business and what that means and the tactical steps of how to do it. Frank is an expert in this. Like I said, his speech blew the entire crowd away. Whether it was first time or his 100th time speaking, you had no idea. But so I'm super excited to share this information with you guys because I know from a business standpoint, a lot of you are going to get a ton of value out of this. So Frank, a little bit about the origin story. Let's hear it, brother.
Get it. So my origin story is dark. It starts real dark, and I want to take you back to that moment where I didn't know it, but I was about to be basically reborn through fire. 26 years old. I had 2 kids, had just bought a house. I'm a double board certified doctor. And I'm like way ahead of the curve of where I thought I'd be in life, 26 years old. And I get a call at 2 a.m. It was, this was back in 2012. It was at the tail end of like a house phone. So the house phone rings, and at that stage, that's an emergency. So I answer the call, and it's my sister Diane, and she says, "Frank, it's happening, get here." I hop out of bed, hop in my car, do 60 miles per hour in a 20, pull up to his house, and I see him on a stretcher, alive but not himself, and I asked the ambulance, where are we going? And they say, in the name of the hospital. I do 100 miles per hour there, and I beat the ambulance. And I'll never forget, time slowed down. I'm leaning against this brick wall, like with my arms crossed, my one foot up against it, just like every second felt like a day. And I see the ambulance turn a corner, no lights and sirens. And I'm like, man, that means he's either dead or he's fine. Like there's kind of no in between. Like he already died, or he's okay. And when the doors open, I remember he's alive, and I remember glaring at him, just angry with the situation. And I'm talking about my dad, and my dad was the closest person to me in my life. Mm-hmm. And now we're in the emergency room, and it's packed. It's packed. And no one's really acting urgently. So I start yelling, he's having a heart attack. Because I knew that that's what it was. Mm-hmm. And finally they start paying attention to him. And then he utters his last words. And he says, Sethi. He looks at me and says, Sethi. And that's the last name of his cardiologist. The cardiologist, in my opinion, killed him. And then he makes the sound that apparently we all make in our final moments. If anybody's experienced death, I've heard that we all make the same sound. And he made that sound, and his body went back. And the medical doctor proceeded to make a joke and say to his team, remember the song Staying Alive? And sings it and says, that's the pace that we want to keep our CPR at.
Oh my gosh.
And at this point, it was just me there. They tried to get us all to leave, and I refused to leave. And I'm grateful I got to spend those last moments with them. But I from that moment forward, though, my life imploded. So at 26, I had the world in the palm of my hands. And by the time I was 30, I woke up on my 30th birthday, and I was the farthest from who I thought I would be at 30. And as a person, I was alone. I had pushed away everyone who loved me. I was abusing alcohol and multiple drugs on a consistent basis. I had to sell my house. And even after selling it, I was now $200,000 in self-created debt from just sheer mistakes. Every credit card maxed out.
Oh my gosh.
Borrowed money from family and friends. And on that day, on my 30th birthday, I'm walking through this shitty apartment, just food and like old alcohol, like just laying around. I'm like, and on that day, it hit me, because we tend to have an image of who we think we're going to be at certain landmarks. So we have an image of who we're going to be at 30 or 40 and 50. And that day, it finally slapped me in the face how the dissonance between who I thought I was going to be. And I happened to stumble upon an Eric Church motivational video. And this one line changed my life. He said, this year is going to be the year I make this goal become reality. I won't talk about it anymore. And there's a lot more context to the video. It's a really amazing 7 or 8 minute video. And I got out of the shower that day. I was like, I'm done. I am done. I thought I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. Therefore, I am going to make $1 million in my 30th year. And 30 days later, I launched my first business with my closest friend, still business partner to this day, Cedric. And 1 year, 2 months later, I get a call from him and he says, we did it. Frank, we did it. I was like, what? We did what? Because I had tracked no financials. I was head down, mission driven, to a flaw, not what I recommend, but to a flaw. And I have no idea what he's talking about. And he's crying. I was like, we did what? He's like, $1.1 million. I was like, holy shit. God. Holy shit. And through that business and through lots of ups and downs, it was far from a straight line up from that moment. But through that business and through mission-driven business specifically, I was able to then rebuild my life. And I had gotten clean and I got my family back and I got myself out of debt and I moved to this beautiful lakefront home and I spent time traveling and I've had a 3rd kid. And it was really the mission-driven business that saved me.
Wow. What an intro. And so that business was CounterStrike. Is that right?
That business was Provere Physical Therapy. It was a brick and mortar, New Jersey based physical therapy, brick and mortar model.
Oh my gosh.
We built it to.
That's crazy. That's nuts. Building $1 million business in like 1 year as a 30-year-old. That's incredible. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. It was a wild ride.
Yeah.
We built that up to 3.3 million in our peak and sold it in 2019, just before the lockdown. So we got very, very lucky with the timing of that.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yep.
That's awesome. And so I mentioned CounterStrike because I know that's another program that you worked on, maybe are working on still. And there's just so many different things that you have going, but thank you for sharing that story. I know that's a really vulnerable moment. And I know that that's going to parlay into HoneyBadger too, because what you saw in that emergency room, basically just like, I'm sure that mortified you. Just the lack of like the professionalism of how they were actually handling your dad and like his last moments of life. I can't even imagine what that was like.
Traumatic. And sadly, it is the norm.
Yeah.
It is the norm. Our medical system kills more people than the diseases do. And the average consumer is completely unaware to this.
Mm-hmm. And
it's my mission to disrupt healthcare in the long term, and help rebuild a system that's actually around the clients and the patients and our health and our outcomes, not around reimbursement.
Yeah. Right now, when everything's based around insurance reimbursement, it's a lot different than the ideal world that you see it. So talk about how you transitioned. Like, I want to dig into, first of all, year 30 for you. Year 30 for you is a changing year. You made a decision. You had a spark to fire moment, as we call on the show, and you made a very clear decision. So what were the habits and actions you took on your 30th year of life that were totally different than before? Like, what did you do to change as a human to get those results?
It's such a blur. I want to try to give you the real details of that year, but I'm not going to lie that it's a blur. Most of that year was breaking extraordinarily bad habits and teaching myself how to cope with stress again in a healthier way. So I had resorted to I would say most days of the week drinking alcohol and using painkillers and Xanax and uppers to control my state. Mm-hmm. And I began the transition to learning how to control my state naturally, control my state through my own thoughts. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm still working on this. I think it's an eternal thing, but I'm grateful that I fell so low now for a couple of reasons. One, it made me dream so big because I knew that in my 30th year, $200,000 in debt, no small win would have mattered. No normal win, no good win would have mattered. Like a year one for most people in a very successful business is like a 200,000, 400,000. Like that's
they're crushing it at that point. Yeah.
People are like, I nailed it. That would have done nothing for me. Mm-hmm. It would literally have been a drop in the bucket. So I'm grateful that I had to aim so big to be able to even make a change. And then I think if I could really give the one tangible takeaway of what that 30th year was, it was me starting to reverse engineer. Well, if that's what I'm aiming for, what do I have to do? Who do I have to be?
Yeah.
And it was a very slow build from there. It was very slow.
You put constraints back into your life, right? You spent this 26, 27, 28, 29 like year of your life, and you're like, okay, I'm going to be a millionaire by 30. And then like, I think what happens to us sometimes is the constraint becomes everything else around us, and time is kind of the last one that we think about. And then boom, you hit 30 and you're like, I have a year, and that constraint became very real to you. And so that obviously allowed you to put on the gas in a new way and, raise your standards to a new level that you hadn't before. So what were some of your actions that you were taking on a daily basis? Were you waking up, crushing a workout 5 a.m.? Like what habits did you build to become that person? Because I want to learn from you just specifically in that right now.
Yeah. First step in retrospect is correcting my inner dialogue. Mm-hmm. My inner dialogue was so incredibly negative that even when I was winning, I was still losing. Mm-hmm. And I hated myself. I hated who I had become. I was filled with shame and rage and anger, mostly towards myself. And I started to realize in the ups and downs of that year that the actual foundation was my own inner dialogue. Nothing changes until that's there. You could force waking up early. You can do all of the things on the external level. If your inner dialogue is negative, it is only going to last so long, and you're still going to be dying inside. So that was really the beginning of me finally getting control of the inner critic who had handed the keys. I'd literally I didn't even realize that there were different parts of our egos anymore. I had just given ownership to the inner critic. He was running the show. So I had to start to balance that out and actually like myself again. It sounds crazy to say that. And I found a really corny book that I think most people, when they hear of this concept, they're going to eye roll and cringe.
Well, what was it?
I don't remember the name of it, but it was like a little short book. And it basically was a guy who is similar story as me, more so though, work addiction. Like he destroyed his life through work addiction, like pushed his wife away, no relationship with kids, successful on the resume, but just destroyed his life in the process. And he hated himself for it. And he had found a mentor who basically told him that you need to love yourself. And this notion, especially if you're masculine energy, this notion of being like, I love myself, tends to be like, what are you talking about? This is weird.
Yeah.
And the entire book was him just repeating, I love myself.
Yep. I know what it is. I have it. I 100% have it. And I absolutely have read it and went through that phase. I have it on Audible too, so that I could re-listen to it. I know exactly the book. It's like tiny. It's like tiny less than 60 pages or so. Yeah.
Transformative. And I only he was like, I know you're going to think this is crazy. Repeat it to yourself 10 times throughout the day, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And what I started to realize while saying it was how much I hated myself. Because at first, when I would say it, I would recognize the distance and be like, holy shit. Like,
no, I don't.
I really don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're an asshole. Like this guy's an asshole. And And then that was the foundation for me to rebuilding my relationship with myself or my self-image. That was really the foundation.
That's fascinating. So a lot of people at the conference that we attended love Psycho-Cybernetics. Have you also read that book?
I have, yes.
Yeah. And
I resonate with it to a degree. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the process of reading that right now, so I'm excited to share with you once I actually get through that. But so you basically had to relearn to love yourself again. You had to like be able to like look in the mirror and be like, that dude's awesome. He's doing the best that he possibly can. He's crushing it every day. And the way that I had to do that and like basically overcome that version of myself, because I went through a very like similar situation in that way, is I had to basically rebuild personal integrity from the ground up. I wasn't keeping any promises I made to myself when I was first getting started, or not even in business, but before business. And that's where it all started for me. It's just being like, what am I going to do? What are the smallest action I can take today? And how do I promise myself that I can take that action? And that was what continued for me to like snowball in the best way possible.
Yeah, and I think there's less corny ways to say it, like trying to think of our audience here listening. If I love myself doesn't resonate, which it still doesn't with me, I think that building the relationship with myself, correcting my inner dialogue, learning to trust yourself, these are all variations of the same thing. And no physical or external performance hack matters until you have the appropriate inner dialogue or relationship or trust with yourself, whichever variation speaks to you. But this truly is like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's like a pyramid of needs.
Yeah.
The base of performance is literally dialogue, internal dialogue, relationship to self.
And so what was the next pyramid level for you?
So the next pyramid level, this is actually a cool framework. I should build this out.
I like this. Yeah, I think this is cool because if it starts with that, you can add that to your, because when you're correcting people from a mission driven standpoint, like a lot of them are going to have probably broken mindsets too. So you could totally coach on that.
Yep. Yeah. And that is a huge component of what we do on the inside. We don't advertise it because nobody thinks they have a broken mindset. But nobody wants to. Once they're, they all think it's like their marketing, but then they realize they hate social media, they hate sales, and like themselves. What do you expect is going to happen? Anyway, so if inner dialogue is first, and we are making this up on the fly, I will put some thought into this. What's next is probably just daily rituals and routines. So environmental factors, specifically. So I would say the environmental factors of rituals and routines. I am so susceptible to environment that's why this room we were talking about in the pre-show, this was half of my garage. It is soundproof, windowless, because I know that's the kind of environment my brain needs to be able to focus for 90-minute increments and thrive. It's not just because I wanted to film more content. It was like I knew I needed to optimize my environment because I do identify formally with somebody who has maybe an undiagnosed level of ADHD or on a spectrum, which I think many of us relate to that nowadays. But it was at a level that was really interfering with my life, I realized, which also is why I had the propensity to move towards drugs and alcohol. So by me controlling as many environmental factors as possible, that was probably the next step towards me becoming a high performer.
I feel that. So rituals and routines are, first of all, mindset, fixing the issues in the internal self, rituals and routines. What was above that?
Now I'm thinking through it, it's like internal dialogue, environment, rituals and routines next on top of that. So, and those two are related. And then I would build in accountability. So this is where one of the simplest things I did, which we had no idea the impact it was going to have when we first started, we created what's called the 505 Tribe. 505 Tribe was me and two of my friends, and we were all in this place of like starting to see traction in our life. This is not in year 30, this is probably 32. We're starting to see traction. We're winning, but we know there's levels way above us, and we're all hungry. We're trying to figure out how to wake up early. That was all we did. We're like, oh man, I keep trying to wake up early and I fall back asleep. It's like, why don't we all call each other? We'll call into a conference line. So at 5:05 a.m. for probably a good few years, we would all call in at 5:05 and say our one most important thing we were going to accomplish for the day. And that simple community that stayed very small, and we still do this to this day. We go in intervals, we'll take breaks from it because I'm conscious of now energy flows in a more macro sense. But that one simple accountability community, and also verbally stating out loud your one thing, because many of us try to accomplish so many different things that if we actually just do one thing right a day, we move exponentially the needle.
Preach.
So there was,
yeah. Dude, this is so great to hear. This you're confirming so much of what I've been saying to myself, to my team, and to my family and everything too, because I got in this weird place where like I had fixed my environment, I'd fixed my routines and stuff, and I had huge routines, like way too long. You know, Craig Ballantyne talks about having like way too long of a routine, right? Yeah, like I was that guy and was falling into this place. I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting my routine done, but then I get done at 9 o'clock or 8:30, and I'm like, okay, well, now what? I guess I can start work, but you're starting on like a low end of an energy cycle because you just spent 90 minutes of deep thinking about your future and your life, and that's super important. But what I shifted to is I was just like, what if I just focused on drinking a gallon of water today, and that's it? And if I got that done, I'm a winner. That literally changed my life, like that mindset. And what it's so funny because I started tracking it. And realized I'm like, okay, well, I just told myself to drink a gallon of water, and I wrote it down in a notebook, and I would like tick off marks when I would get closer and closer. And then I would write down what actually happened as a result. And it's all the deep work I was avoiding. It was all the stuff that's like the big hairy projects. You're like, no way, not doing that today, tomorrow, that sort of stuff. And I would actually go head first into those like scarier tasks immediately. And so I think there's definitely something there.
I agree 100%. And I think we all go through, once you get into the performance, the personal performance realm, we all go through this bell curve where we get wildly elaborate morning routines, where the morning routine became like, hurry up, I gotta meditate. Like, oh, I gotta meditate for 5 minutes. Like, to completely
what's the point?
Like making no point of meditating.
Right.
And now what I do and what I teach my people is the minimum viable morning routine, which is what I say a max is 3 steps. So identify the 3 things that actually cultivate the right mindset for you in your day, and be flexible with it. So for me, it's really just it's exercise, it's reading, and it's usually some form of like sauna or hot tub or cold shower. Like I get very influenced by
sensory
physiology and sensory inputs. So I could use those to shift my state based off of how I'm feeling. But it's much more dynamic now. As in the beginning, when you're trying to learn it, you make it very rigid. Like, I'm waking up at 5:05, and at some point, 5:05 almost killed me. So now I went to the other side of the curve, where I had become so obsessed with high performance, so obsessed with making more and more money, that I was neglecting my relationships. I was neglecting my own health. I'm still dealing with repercussions from it to this day. I might look very healthy, but I do a ton of really advanced testing for like life extension. And because my dad died at 64 and most of my family died young, and I have cardiac markers already. I'm 36 years old. Wow. And they're not your traditional ones. These are tests that predict cardiac rates, incidence very young. And I can reverse this, but the amount of effort that I have to put into managing my own health now is exponential because I overdrew that account very early on in my career, and also with the phase of unhealthy life that I was in.
Wow. So I would love to talk offline more about that too, and just like seeing what those markers are, because I'd like to know if that's something that I withdrew too much from that account, or where I'm at with that. So I'll definitely follow up on that, Frank. But continuing forward in your life here, so you've gone through this phase of kind of rebuilding yourself, and then you move forward into launching yourself into several different projects. I'd love to talk about those projects between HoneyBadger, a little bit about CounterStrike, and then the primary focus being the mission-driven business.
Sorry.
Let's do CounterStrike first.
When I sold the brick and mortar business, I didn't sell because I had made such massive mistakes in my life. Even selling a multi-million-dollar business only put me in like a good situation, not a great one. So I was able to take a few months off, I was able to upgrade my housing. I was able to go on vacations. I'm very grateful, and I lived a 1% life in reality in the scope of the world. But it wasn't usually when you hear people say selling a business, you think like, oh, that person's now rich. That person now can retire. Right. And that wasn't the case. So I was able to take a few months off, but then I needed to rebuild again. Like there was no salary that could match what I was paying myself. So there was many offers for me to join corporate healthcare systems, paying in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but I would be selling my soul. So I refused, and I went back into the entrepreneurship again. So I took a few months, and in my clinical side of my career, I really only loved working with fighters. Those are the people, after 12 years of being a double board certified doctor of physical therapy, I was like, man, I can't stand working with anybody else other than fighters. That's just the type of people that I wanted to work with, because they could come to you with their ankle literally broken and be like, what do I have to do to fight next week? Like, I'm fighting next week. What do I have to do? And that's the kind of people I liked working with. So I decided to build an online platform in 2019 exclusively for fighters. And I didn't have the vision mapped out. I think too many times entrepreneurs who have some success, we're really good at reverse engineering a story that made it sound like it was a master plan. And the reality is that 99% of businesses did not do that. Jeff Bezos did not sit in 1992 and imagine that he was going to go to space now. Richard Branson created Virgin Airways based off of an actual real-time need at an island, trapped, unable to get home, crowdsourced enough money, right? So he crowdsourced enough money to be able to rent a jet, then had the idea. So in reality, I knew I wanted to work with fighters. I knew I didn't want to spend all day in a clinic, so I launched an online platform. And then from there, I iterated it into what it is today, which is basically a fight prep company. So we help amateur and aspiring pro fighters manage their injuries, weight cut, because they usually have to lose a ton of weight to fight, do strength training, heart rate based conditioning, and mindset performance enhancement type mental work, all through asynchronous management in an app.
That is really cool. I would love to like dig deeper into that. I'm going to download the app and check it out. And no interest in becoming an MMA fighter, but everything else that you talked about that makes people become that, very interesting to me. And so
the app is a shell. The app is a shell for our coaching. So basically, if you were to try to download the app directly, it's just going to give you a login screen.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
When an athlete signs up with us, everything is custom built. We custom, because a jiu-jitsu athlete versus a MMA versus totally a kickboxer, different. They need to train differently. So we reverse engineer their program and then load it into the app for them.
Totally get it. So that's still going on today, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, yep. Awesome. And then so
we have fighters all around the world.
Is it 14 countries or is it even more than that now?
Or we stopped counting. So I think it's like 16.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So you've got that going, and then there's the HoneyBadger project as well. So talk a little bit more about the HoneyBadger project.
HoneyBadger project is my main focus. I have someone that I've groomed and I trust very much and brought on as a partner to manage CounterStrike, to allow me to focus on my life's mission, which is disrupting healthcare. Healthcare is the slowest to evolve out of any industry in the world because of the third-party payer system. You get sick, you go to a doctor or someone else pays them. That disconnect means that whether you get helped or not, they get paid. Where else in the world can that exist? Where else can somebody just deliver the service and not have any repercussions when they don't actually do their job or help anyone? And the entire healthcare industry is based off of this premise. So I believe that we need to inspire as many practitioners as possible to reimagine their skill sets, go direct to consumer. And by doing that, we will create healthcare 2.0, which will be better for consumers because everybody will have a very specific solution to either the identity that they share or the problem that they share. Meaning, I have built a world-class solution for amateur fighters. That is a tiny sliver of the population. If someone else creates a world-class solution for moms who just had a C-section, someone else creates a world-class solution for somebody who was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, if imagine we have thousands of these options, we all have something hand carved for our personal situations or the problem that we're looking to deal with.
That's good. That's good. So you're building that right now. And so talk to me tactically about what that looks like day to day for you.
Yeah. So we have a 12-week program for healthcare professionals to reimagine and repackage their skill sets. They can come in with no business experience whatsoever, and we'll help them create an offer using some combination of in-person and digital delivery mechanisms. So oftentimes healthcare providers just imagine themselves as like a session, like come for a session with me, and you pay for that session. What we're trying to shift healthcare professionals to is getting paid on outcomes. So the doctor I'm working with for my own life extension, like I pay to work with him for a period of time. I don't pay for how many sessions I use. I don't pay for just like the blood work. I pay for access to him to manage me as a human and my health.
It's good.
So on a smaller scale or maybe more tangible, let's imagine moms recovering from C-sections. We have somebody in the program right now who's building a 90-day recovery program for moms recovering from C-sections because the path is usually all the same and needs like 10% customization. She has a way to do that. So new moms, instead of having this massive surgery, getting no actual rehab to their abdominal musculature, which then might lead towards a slew of other issues, she's trying to get in front of those moms sooner and give them a 90-day process to be able to recover faster and more effectively.
Yeah. Not to mention, I'm sure back issues are probably one of the biggest things. Obviously, when you talk about ripping your abs open, right? Like all that stuff that you've been relying on for the rest of for your whole entire life, then gets ripped open. That's just, I'm sure, the beginning of that. But that's incredible. I love that framework of making someone a specialist. It's funny. I asked my buddy Tyler Panko, shout out to you. He's a listener on the show, and I asked him, I'm like, so you've got a holistic health doctor, you've got somebody looking at your gut. You've got somebody that's really analyzing your blood, everything. Like, who do you go to? And it's funny. I didn't say like, oh, what hospital or what clinic did you go to? I said, who's your guy or who's your gal that you go to for this? And that's, I believe what you said. Like, people are going to go more and more specialized with this field because it's a trust thing. Like it's so much more based around the reviews of your friends and like what experiences did they have? Like, how could I get that similar experience rather than just like being pushed into a system and then being, hopefully getting the result.
Yeah. And the world's ready for it.
Yeah.
They really are.
So right now you're going around. I love the offer. I think that's brilliant. So your offer to them is to help them create the offer for themselves and really just helping them create a new revenue stream, specialize their business, and also lean further into telehealth with an actual purpose, I'm guessing, right? Some sort of delineation. Yeah.
I don't identify with is telehealth because that has such a pre-connotation of just being a Zoom session. That there are so many ways to use a digital delivery mechanism like asynchronous programming, group calls for community support or delivery of education, a drip feed of a mini course, like 5 minutes a day of really actionable information, a longer course, there's seminar, there's so many ways to repackage your skill set. The healthcare professionals tend to have a dichotomy. Either I do sessions in person or I do sessions on Zoom, and both will burn you out. Both will keep you at a 1-for-1 time for money ratio, which will cap you income-wise, cap you energy-wise, and not leave a whole lot of room for anything else in life.
I totally get it. This is brilliant. So talk a little bit more about asynchronous training or asynchronous programming. Give me a tactical
asynchronous
example. Programming.
Yeah, so let's use the fighters just because it's my world. Sometimes I hesitate to use that because people have a hard time disassociating from the example, and the same principle works for the people I teach to help create businesses for Parkinson's disease and post-cancer treatment and all of these other things. So when we sign somebody up, we have a really elaborate intake process that's very functional. It's not like a medical doctor form where you're saying the same things over and over again, nonsense. It is like, I get to know you as a human. Then we do one onboarding Zoom session where we hear all about your past medical history, your goals, your training age, how long you've been lifting, how long you've been exercising, any health concerns you have, your specific 90-day goal, your longer term goal. Then we reverse engineer a 90-day plan for you. Part of that 90-day plan is going to consist of some form of movement. We're going to do some sort of cardiovascular movement, some sort of weight training. That part of that plan is going to be nutrition, likely nutrition habits and the basic ones. Almost everybody wants to go right to complex solutions, macro goals, macro planning. Stopping eating after dinner or just simply eating more whole foods is the equivalent to like your gallon. Like we need to just like start there and earn the privilege of then going to macro tracking and things like that. Mm-hmm. So they'll have some sort of movement, some sort of nutrition, some sort of mindset piece, maybe more towards sports psychology, maybe more towards inner dialogue, something along those lines. And those are usually the three basic components that gets dripped into their app in a calendar. And then we support that with 24-hour turnaround time response if they have questions. So if they have a question, they could drop it in the messenger. We'll either respond with a message or a quick video. We have drag and drop resources for the questions that we get most often. So if somebody says, hey coach, what should I be doing with water? We probably have a 3-minute video on water we could just drag and drop in that's filmed asynchronously, timeless. So we basically just say like, yo, all right, today we're talking about water intake. Here's what we recommend. Here's what we're gonna do. Boom, and it's drag and dropped in. Every week we have one of the members of our team review all of the stats. So we have them wear biometric trackers like the Whoop, which measures sleep consistency, HRV, resting heart rate, a slew of biometric measures. And we look for trends. So the world is getting more and more into data, yet they're actually not changing behavior. It's like this weird thing that we're all doing where we're taking in data and be like, cool, my HRV is 60.
Awesome.
What does that mean? And what are you going to do about it? So we should only be tracking the data that we're going to allow to influence our behavior. And anyway, so we review the metrics once a week, and then we check in about that. Hey, noticed your sleep is down to 5 hours a night. Everything okay? What do you think that's from? Okay, what's the one thing we're going to do this week to change that? Yeah. So one formal check-in a week on our schedule. Asynchronous communication from that point forward means I get to check it when I want. So I could check it at 9 a.m. I could check it at 9 p.m., which allows for a pretty incredible freedom in life. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're still providing that same level of care through automation and specific like check-in windows. I love that. I think that's really
better
cool.
Level of care, because the norm, if you go to a trainer, let's say with fitness, once or twice a week, that is like 6% of your entire week is less. 3% of your week is spent with the trainer, and there's no communication between there. If you go to physical therapy 3 times a week, the majority of the week is spent not actually talking to your physical therapist. If you go see your doctor once every 3 months, the majority of your time is not talking to your doctor. So by having this asynchronous, more frequent communication, it does create more superior results, because humans are horrible with consistency, especially when it involves anything with behavior change, me included. So we need the accountability. We need the day-to-day check-ins. We need the week-over-week check-ins.
Very cool. So if anybody wants to find out more about that or learn more about that, where should they go and what action should they take?
My personal Instagram is Frank_Benedetto. And that's really the hub for communicating with me. I welcome anybody. If anybody here is a healthcare professional and this sparked your interest, you like what I did there?
Yeah, I see you.
slid it in. Just DM me #Spark, and I'm going to hook you up with a ton of free stuff because you're part of this community. And I want to help and give back and see if we could further your progress along your entrepreneurial pursuits.
Awesome. Let's talk about mission-driven business. This is, again, guys, this is the speech that I got to hear Frank give. And obviously we don't have time for the full hour speech, but I just would love for you to share some tactical things for people. What is a mission-driven business, and what are 5 things that they could do to become one?
So let's dig into that. A mission-driven business, man, it's so hard to do it. You ever hear the expression, I'm sorry I didn't have time to write you a shorter letter?
Yes. 100%.
That's like this. It takes more mental thought to summarize it. So what I would say, true mission-driven business is when the company exists for a purpose that's greater than just paying you or even doing a good job for the customers it has. The business exists to create a change in the world, to create a vision for the future that doesn't currently exist. And when we get really clear on how we are going to change the world in our little sliver of the way, because I think a lot of times, especially with how popularized these mega CEOs like Elon Musk and Bezos that get, we think, well, if we're not doing something that is electric cars, rockets, and the roofs and also tunnels, we're not really going to change the world. So people don't even try. Mm-hmm. But I believe in niche-based business. You can identify the smallest audience that you could have a life-changing impact with and launch a mission-driven business right now. Mm-hmm. Or you can expand the vision of your current business. So some of you, maybe you're selling, I don't know, like Stream Deck, like this thing that's not hooked up right now. But if you're selling this and you're the owner of this company and you're like, man, like you could fake making a mission out of that. Like we are going to give influencers the ability to create the best possible online experiences. And that's good. That's probably marketing, but it's not really the mission. Right. It's like a forced mission. A real mission is something that creates a vision for the future that doesn't currently exist. Now, if you're like Stream Deck, you don't have to like then sell your business, create a new one. There's two different types of businesses, mission-driven businesses. There's direct and indirect. A direct mission-driven business is where the product itself that you sell, the service, changes people's lives, changes the way the world works. An indirect is like Tom's shoes, where Tom, assuming Tom is still the CEO, Tom doesn't pretend that his shoes are life-changing. Instead, when you buy a pair of Tom's shoes, a person in need gets a free pair of shoes. And with the millions of pairs of shoes that he has given away, the world is literally a better place. The people who are living in third world countries now have at least one part of the security that they need to be able to thrive. And Tom isn't trying to get them water and there's other companies that pick that slice of the world that they're going to go after, and they're okay with that. Just like there's companies that give away a pair of glasses, and you don't have to do a one-for-one trade-off. You could simply anchor your business to another donation. So for example, if you do Facebook ads, and yes, you could argue that there is a mission in the business to help people, like me, grow, maybe succeed at Facebook ads. But in reality, the other way too is to anchor that to a charity that you really believe in. So imagine you anchor that to every person who signs up for you. You open a business for someone in Africa, and that costs like $100 or less. So you donate to an organization that every time you make a sale, a business in Africa is created. And that exists. Like imagine how good you would feel. Yeah. Imagine how good your clients would feel. So either whether you're a direct mission-driven business or an indirect, the goal is to have it be so compelling that you get pulled out of bed. So I can't skip a day. I take vacations, I believe, heavily in work-life balance. But when I choose to work, I don't ever have a problem working, because every day I go without doing my vision of the future, another person is literally dying. So if I could create a hospital of the future, if I could reimagine the way ambulance systems work, if I could have oncologists not just discharge somebody after leukemia, but put them on a program after leukemia treatment, the world will literally look different. Every day I push that back, that's one day. Maybe that dream takes 5 or 10 years, but now it's 10 years in one day that dream doesn't come to life. So the mission pulls me out of bed. It also attracts top talent. I attract people to work with us who probably, honestly, shouldn't work with us, but they want to be a part of this. Meaning because of the size business we are. Right. We make $100K a month. They should be working with people who make $1 million a month. But they're like, I want to get behind this, and I am in whatever it takes. So when you're a mission-driven business, you tend to make more money because you're solving a really big problem. You attract top talent. You have a chance at fulfillment and legacy because the mission drives you. And there's a slew of other benefits, but I'm going to pause here and get your questions or thoughts where else we want to dig into.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's good. And I love the way that you approach this, because specifically the thing that stuck out to me with the pull versus push, Like I thought about it also of like you're getting pulled up a mountain, similar to like, you're on on slopes skiing, and you hop on that rail and you're up there, versus like trying to climb a mountain every single day and saying, okay, well today I got to go climb that mountain. It's like, you're going to burn out eventually. But the mission is like the chain that's just pulling you up, and like, it's easy. And there's pushing yourself to do something, and there's like literally being pulled, like you can't even help it because it's just pulling you so much. And that was actually the analogy I wrote down, was like being pulled by a log chain, because you're going with it, right? And that was what I wrote down when I was listening to you. And I firmly believe in this. And as soon as I saw the like the Tom Shoes example, it clicked for me instantly. And I was asking myself like, okay, how can I do this? How can we become a better business this way and become more mission driven? Because right now our mission is to become the most trusted agency for small businesses in the world. And basically what that means is like, we believe that there's like a really bad name for really just like advertising agencies in general. They either under deliver, underperform, take money, don't communicate well. And so we have like the antithesis of all of those things are our core values. And that's the way that we've built our mission within this, is because like the largest quote small business agency would then go to being like, someone that McCann owns, or someone that like the largest agencies in the world own. Yep. Not something that we were trying to become, but that's the way that we framed it. So what are your thoughts on that as our vision? Do you think that's specific enough? Like, I look at you as the expert on this, so I'm just curious what you think.
You are directly impacting people's lives. Like the business owner, if you were to take somebody who is either has an amazing product but has no ability to advertise or market, and you give them a chance to provide for their family, like think of 30-year-old me meeting you. Mm-hmm. Could you? I had atypical success. Could you have accelerated that? Or if I wasn't lucky to be in that situation I was in, could you have helped the 30-year-old me who maybe didn't hit the way I did? And what would that have meant for my life? Because if I had failed, I don't know if I'd have my kids right now. I don't know if I'd be alive right now. Yeah. Because I was worth more dead through my life insurance policy, and that crossed my mind. So don't underestimate the direct impact you have. And the marketing world has such a black eye on it right now. And especially this world where marketers are marketing to marketers. And there's just this circular talk of spinning stuff that just selling and selling and selling, and not really actually having any oomph behind it, and actually caring whether it works or not, is become the norm. So what I tell people in healthcare is that it's not enough to just be better than the worst. Like, that's not something to be proud of. Right. So just the fact that you're not the worst or that you're the antithesis, and that's like halfway there. I think that you could probably do both missions. You could do it indirect and you can do direct, meaning that can you without changing a thing about what you likely do, can you just frame it internally and anchor to it that your job is actually to transform the lives of the owners that you serve. Mm-hmm. And the way you do that is through advertising and marketing and all the skills that you do. But really anchor to the fact that you are changing their lives. Yeah. That you're going to help me make sure Gio, my third kid, has the life that I want him to have. And that's your direct mission. Now, if you wanted to also tag along to an indirect mission, because the reality is 95% of small businesses fail. I think that stat's still real. Mm-hmm. And like the life cycle of business is only shortening. So you have a real mission built in already, because the most of your customers are going to be out of business within 5 years unless you help them get success. Right. So that's direct mission. Your indirect mission, though, you could absolutely anchor to something that you also feel passionate about. So let's imagine Parkinson's disease, just because it's been top of mind lately.
Mine's human trafficking. That's something that my sister and the rest of our team are all very passionate about as well. And we haven't made enough of a stand towards that, and haven't made the actual requisite donations to like justify where I'd be comfortable actually promoting that, because I want to make sure that we do it right. We find the right organizations, et cetera. But that's something that I'm incredibly passionate about, because I just like, there's a lot of things that happen in the world, but that is one of them. It is just like, it just seems the most broken to me.
Yeah. So you have what you're connected to, anchor your business to it in a meaningful way. And just like investing, one of the advice I wish I had listened to when I was young is it doesn't matter. Just start with $100 a month if you're 20, and then by the time you're 35, you have $1 million, blah, blah, blah. The same thing goes with your impact. So like just tomorrow, pick any organization and donate $100 a month and then iterate from there. You might like that organization, you might not, you might move on. But with like a half-hour Google search, I'm confident you can find something that is good enough for you to start. And then you could start to figure out, am I giving a percentage of top line, bottom line? Am I giving a flat fee? Am I giving it every time somebody signs up? And you're never using this like to advertise, but you stand proudly for it. And anytime you do that, you're going to inspire somebody else. And maybe the clients that you have will then also start to see that and build their business from the start, building in charitable donations.
That's good.
And imagine if like the web of this effect, because we're not all going to be Bill Gates and be able to give millions of dollars at the end of our lives to all these things. We have to do it as we go. We have to build it into the budgets now.
That's really good. That's super tactical. I really appreciate you workshopping that with me. If someone wants to become a mission-driven business, so you gave me really good advice, like go, Google the thing that you're passionate about, go find it. What else can they do today to become a mission-driven business?
Talk more about the direct mission-driven business, because there are 5 characteristics. I think that's what you asked me in the beginning. And there are 5 characteristics of a disruptive mission-driven business. And a disruption means that you are literally altering the way a category of businesses work. That's my intention with healthcare. You can do that as far as, let's say, the way Facebook ads are working, or the way that people have monetized Facebook ads. Any one of you can actually be the first to change the way it actually is monetized. One of you could find a way to disrupt it. And the way that we create a disruptive mission-driven business, there's 5 characteristics. If you hit all 5, you are like a unicorn. You are a unicorn of a business. If you hit 3 of these, you are exceptional. You are really something different. So don't think that you have to like do all of these or all of them at one time. But basically, here's the concept. It's the first is that you want to have improved effectiveness and outcomes for the end user, hands down. So you can't just get the same results, but cheaper. You can't get the same results, but faster. Those are like, that will put you in the category of having some of the 5, but not all 5. We should be trying to always disrupt the norms in our industry of what people come to expect. So in physical therapy, people expect to go 3 times a week for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. They expect to not necessarily have one-on-one attention. They expect to be in a big room with tables and do exercises. They expect that it might take 3 months. How can you improve the effectiveness and improve the outcomes? People expect when they recover from C-sections that they will take 6 months to get back to normal, or a year to get back to
amazing.
their.
I love this.
Yeah. So how can we, 1, improve effectiveness and outcomes for the end user? 2, how can you get those outcomes faster? Yeah. So if you could have improved outcomes and get it faster, your competition can't touch you. 3, can you find a new or a variety of delivery mechanisms in the way that you deliver your product? So for me in healthcare, we expect physical therapy to be physical and in person, but there's this way for us to be asynchronous combination of in-person and digital that's really new and exciting and allows you to see more people and all these other benefits. So for you, if the way that everybody else in your business, in your industry is just delivering a course on Kajabi, is there a different way that you could deliver your course? I think my Siri just activated. So is there a different way you could deliver the course or that education, that information? Because at some point, someone decided to go all in on like Kajabi and the similar platforms, and now we're all just replicating that. And there might be a part of it that stands, but give yourself permission to dream and imagine, how else could I deliver this result or this education? 4, it's got to be less expensive for the consumer. And now this is the one where everybody pauses, especially if you're in a high ticket space. I'm not advocating that you have to drop your prices. I'm talking about in comparison to two things. One, the norm. So for me, a healthcare professional tends to think, and what I did for my first business, I had to take out a $100K bank loan. I couldn't even be on it. My partner had to do it because I was such a liability. So I added myself to the LLC afterwards. The less expensive to the consumer, we are a high ticket offer. However, it is less than 10% of what it would cost to go get a $100K bank loan. We're a sub 10K offer. So the comparison is not me trying to be endlessly cheaper. The comparison is most healthcare professionals are trying to save up or go get a bank loan for 100K. For 10K all in, I can help you be in business right now. Fifth way, more profitable for you, the owner. So if you do all of those other four correctly, this one happens pretty much automatically. Right. If you don't hit all of the other four, you have to put a little bit more effort into this because your profit fuels the mission. When you have profit, that allows you to buy back your time, which then allows you thinking space, which allows you to sit back and come up with world-class solutions. It allows you to think of strategy. It allows you to have a bigger scope of the vision from having a little bit of distance from it. It allows you to invest in top talent so you can afford to pay people to innovate for you who might have different levels of expertise. Richard Branson has no idea about a damn spaceship, but he went to space and his company is going to function in space. It's because he has always had profitable businesses, can attract top talent, mission driven. And if you look at this category, it's all of the same. He's checked the box in all of these in every one of his businesses.
100%, which is why he has 300 of them and he's not running any of them.
Not one.
That's the whole thing. Dude, that is so valuable. And I hope my recommendation to you, if you're listening to this podcast, is stop what you're doing, stop the lawnmower, pull over the side of the road if you have to, put these down in your iPhone notes and just review these and ask yourself the questions, basically frame what Frank was saying in a question and say, okay, the expectation on the current way we deliver our product is X, and walk them through. I love your example about physical therapy because it's so funny as you're walking me through, I was like, yep, that's what I experienced. Yep, that's normal. That's normal. That's normal. And then I'm just imagining wait a second. We haven't ever actually asked ourselves what the expectation of the quote industry is like. And then how do we be 10 steps better than that? But I love that framework of asking yourself the question. And then that forces you to come up with answers rather than, it's asking better questions really.
Yep. 100%.
That's super good.
Here's the recap if anybody's going to take advantage of that tactic. 1, improved effectiveness and outcomes. 2, improved time efficiency. 3, new and variety of delivery mechanisms. 4, less expensive for the consumer. 5, more profitable for the owner.
Love it. Dude, thank you so much for just dropping value bombs today. You crushed it. So good. Appreciate it, man.
Anywhere I show up, this is how I try to show up. I read it from Seth Godin, is treat everything you do like you're an artist, and this is part of my body of work. So every single podcast, every single piece of content, every interaction I have with an audience, I really try to treat like it should be a reflection of my body of work as a totality of my career. And I think as long as you approach every single interaction like that, at the end of your life, you're going to look back and be proud. And hopefully I was able to serve you and your audience today.
That's super good. Before we close out, I want you to recommend 3 books that our audience should go take advantage of, and then one final piece of parting advice for entrepreneurs.
Yep. Okay. All right. So 3 books. And he did put me on the spot, by the way.
That changed your life. The stuff that you're like, I'm going to reread that for the rest of my life. It's so good. That's the constraint I want you to work in. Because I know you've read a lot of books.
Okay. Marcus Aurelius Meditations. And nice. The reason why is because we think that everything we're dealing with now is unique. And this is a day-to-day diary of somebody who lived a few thousand years ago, who is talking about how he needs to get better at not having so many distractions.
Yeah.
think about that. He was writing probably on like a tablet,
Literally.
like a stone tablet, literally.
Dude, my favorite, I want to, sorry, I cut you off. I want to add this in because this is my favorite part about that book. Like he had to be reminded. So he had someone follow him around. He was such a like figurehead and so powerful. He was literally one of the most powerful people in the world. And he had somebody follow him around and go, "You're human. You're a human. You're a human being. You can die. You're immortal. You're immortal." Like he had someone reminding him of that. That's how powerful the dude was. And incredible. So that is a phenomenal example of a book that I also really love too. So please continue.
Yeah. Probably Seth Godin. So that's really what I would say was the one, if there was one spark, because I was mission driven, but I didn't have all of this vocabulary around it. And when I read that one book, it was like, I saw the world. Like I was like, oh my God, I understand. Like it was just that one thing. And then Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Infinite Game is a huge part of what I believe in. It gives very, very cool, tangible examples between, let's say, how Microsoft and Apple approaches business. Apple being an infinite game minded, Microsoft being finite game minded. Yeah, that's it. Now, as far as the one piece of actionable advice, what I have found, the reason why my company is named the HoneyBadger Project, which is a ridiculous name, I know, is because the honey badger is the most fearless animal in the world. Made popular by a viral, absurd 2011 YouTube video. Yes, I named my business after that.
So good.
And the reality is that most of us are still operating and governing our lives by fear. And to succeed in business requires you to constantly step into the fear at every single turn. And we tend to lie to ourselves and think that the fear was like getting started. Okay, now it's done. Or the fear was like that the first thing. But the reality is that fear is at every turn. You're going to be afraid to film yourself for the first time. I was afraid to do my first ever podcast. I was afraid to go live for the first time. I was fucking so afraid to step on stage 3 weeks ago when you saw me. I was going to throw up beforehand. So I've conditioned myself to constantly step into the fear. And what I believe it takes to disrupt any industry is a relentless stepping into the fear. Now, fear, as you become more successful and as you get further into your life, it's a shapeshifter. So in the beginning, we are just fearful and we're aware of the fear. Then as we start to step into it, fear takes a different form. Fear can be overthinking. Fear can be unnecessary confusion. Fear could be buying 6 different programs and not knowing which instructions to follow. Fear really will become aware that you know what it is, and it'll take a different form to stifle you even more. Intellectual procrastination is another one that's really just a manifestation of fear. So my one piece of advice to make this actionable is take consistent, uncertain action. Whatever it is you're working on, stop keeping it in the lab and just launch it and iterate. We model the Silicon Valley style of business building, which is like jumping off the cliff and assembling the plane on the way down. Launch, get your first 3 to 5 clients, co-create with them the next iteration of your business. That just move it forward before you're ready. Whatever you're not ready for, just do it literally today or tomorrow.
It's good. It's good, man. So good. Thank you for sharing that. You've been an absolute blessing to this show, man. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Pleasure being here. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Guys, this is going to wrap it up for another episode of Spark to Fire. I know this is a huge note-taking episode for everybody. And please, Frank is really big on Instagram, so I want you guys to screenshot this and tag him. Frank, go ahead and what's your Instagram handle again?
_Benedetto. Benedetto. Frank_Benedetto.
Yeah. Make sure you guys tag him, screenshot it, and then just let us know what you thought. And if this impacted you, this changed your life at all, it'd mean the world to me. So if you could leave us a 5-star rating and a written review on iTunes, that's how we can get more awesome people like Frank on the show. And appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. And that's all for now.